there is no way to subjectively go on a quiz and say, all right, this cigar is that for me tastes like vanilla is going to be appropriate for you.
Was this like a quiz to figure out what the flavor profile of the cigars you were going to receive would be, or what?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And then the curation was going to be developed in that process. So we said, all right, okay, I respect that. If they're converting people that way, that's awesome. But that's not the way it's going to work.
Thank you for coming on the podcast. We spoke a little while back about My Cigar Pack and what you're doing over there. But for those of our audience that have not heard about what you do, who you are, what your story is, let's start from the beginning. So you are from the Dominican. I'll start there, and I'm going to let you take it and talk through your story.
All right, do you elevator pitch, right?
Yes. I mean, you take as long as you want. We have no time limit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like to go into that much because it's a boring story. Raised in the Dominican Republic. My grandparent immigrated to the DDR. That's why I am white, light-eyed, and hair colored. And I just everybody. This last weekend, just visiting some shops in New York, I walked into a bunch of Dominicans, and they're all like, "Who's this gringo? What's up?" in Spanish, and they were like, "What?" So that's kind of like the story of life. Grew up in the DR. Fell in love with cigars when I was a teenager and started when I was 19 years old, and worked with factories and then associations, and started my own gigs. And My Cigar Pack and Cigar Yard were born 3 years ago, in late 2019, and it's been a fun ride. I wake up every day because I'm doing what I've been just connecting with people like you and just a ton of other individuals that this platform has enabled me to connect with. And Cigar Pack is a subscription, premium specialized cigar subscription. For those that don't know, which I assume is most of you. And Cigar Yard is its sister company, which is specialty online retail. We got a lot of other projects coming up, new things. This 2020, we're going to launch 3 other sub brands that are going to be linked under the same umbrella, but with different, dieselized, even though they're associated with different concepts of premium cigars. And cigars every day, 24/7, man.
It's not a bad thing. I don't think. Hasn't been for me yet. So My Cigar Pack is a monthly subscription, and then Cigar Yard is an online retailer. That's how I'm understanding the breakdown of two different sides.
Yeah, they're both sister companies, so they both complement each other in platform and content. I mean, Cigar Yard doesn't even have social media presence. It's just piggybacks on My Cigar Pack.
Sure.
But yeah, we started 2 separate concepts because we wanted to grow them differently, separately, and in their own way. I think there's an interesting, cross operational, system within those 2. But if you do them separately, I think you can focus on each respective's attributes and processes. And I think that played out well because, we really focused on growing My Cigar Pack, and now we're just pushing, to grow Cigar Yard, and it's been fun, separating them.
So you grew up in Dominican. Naturally, you're around cigars because it's the Dominican, and it's everywhere there. Where was the point, or why? Well, I guess where and why did you decide to get into that vocationally? Was that something you grew up wanting to do, or did someone introduce you to the business, or how did that start?
So I smoked my first cigar when I was a teenager. Just it was something that I was drawn to. My dad used to smoke in his studio, library / office, and he did it as a kind of as a tribute to his late father. He smoked cigars, smoked pipe tobacco. Good friends with Carlo Fuente and Carlito Fuente. And one day, they met up, and he brought back a box of 858 Florfina 2006. I'll never forget. And I remember him taking a few cigars out and putting in this super cool book humidor. It was like 3 books stacked on top of each other and just crack open. It was like super cool. And I remember watching him put the cigars in there, go out, whatever. He had a meeting, he left, and I literally just walk in there. I grab one of the cigars, I cut it, and I light it. I'm just chilling. I just got lost in time, and he came back and he caught me. He's like, "You're gonna finish that cigar, kid."
Did you not like it, or did
that's what he was hoping? Actually, there's a funny story, because when my younger brother, younger brothers always grow up admiring their older brothers, wanted to do the same thing. So, he wanted to get into cigars for a while, and my dad's like, "Okay, perfect." So he actually got the strongest possible cigars that he could find, and he told my little brother, "Hey, you want to smoke?" Yeah, I think he was like 17 at the time, 17 or 18, whatever. Like, "Oh, you want to smoke cigars?" Okay, cool. So him and 2 of his buddies wanted to do it. They went home. My dad gave him the strongest cigars you could possibly think of, and they all threw up and said, never again. Up until this day, they cannot smell cigars. Like, my brother he will feel dizzy as soon as he sits in my car, because I smoke in my car. He's like, "Oh."
So you have a cigar company and he can't stand it?
He can't. He's a doctor, actually. So it's
that's funny.
Kind of ironic. Yeah, man. So I became in love with it when I was, I was young, and I had different career aspirations, and graduating high school, and then I in the back of my head, I knew I always wanted to do something with cigars. Traditionally, all you think is like, when you're unexposed to such a mass market, your factory standpoint,
Yep.
especially growing up in the DR. So I just didn't really feel like I could pursue it at the time. And then I was going to go study abroad in the States, and I ended up staying in the DR, started law school in the DR, decided to go to law school instead of following my father's steps. He's an architect, and I worked with him for a little bit right before I graduated high school. So it was kind of tough, because I loved it, but I couldn't get along with him in the workplace. Two very strong characters. I mean, I love him. He's my mentor. But so yeah, one day I come back from school, and I tell him, "Hey, dude, I am not happy, and I want to do something that makes me happy, and I'll graduate, I'll finish, but I'm pretty sure I'll never be a lawyer. And I want to work cigars." He's like, "Okay, talk about it."
Were they pretty invested in you going to law school?
No, not at all.
Or was that all your
it was all me.
Push into it?
Yeah, besides like growing up, besides being drawn to architecture because of my mom's an interior designer, and they both have a company together. And besides being drawn to that, I always liked political science for some reason. It's crazy, because nowadays I can't really have a deep conversation about politics or about political science in general. But
we'll have
I was
to do
gonna
that sometime.
Yeah. I wanted to study in the States, and I was kind of working towards that, to study political science. And then when I decided to stay, there was a lot of factors involved. And, I think the most natural thing to do, being kind of like business driven, was study something a little bit more complex. I knew deep down inside I never wanted to be a lawyer. But when I started law school, I had this approach that I wanted to understand how to develop my critical analysis, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, I think every business oriented major out there should have, a couple semesters with like deep legal structure, just to develop that critical analysis, how to understand how to operate, within legal frameworks and stuff like that. So yeah, I kind of, I knew, but I didn't know what the path was going to look like. And then I told him, and he's like, "Man, I need you to get me like a job in a factory." And I knew a lot of these kids, a lot of these Guillermo's daughter from La Aurora went to school with me. Daniel Nunez from General Cigars' daughter went to school with me, like same grade. Klaas Kellner, Hankey's son, was a grade above me, and he hooked it up when I was like 15, my first tour that, Don Eladio gave me personally. All super interconnected. And, at the time he was building Hochi Blanco's new house at the time. And, Hochi was a close friend of my mom's. They went to school together, and, we hung out growing up. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, his kids, my friends, a couple of years younger, but, still nonetheless, his older son is really tight with my little brother. So, he's building Hochi's house, and one day he's like, yo, come with me. So we go to Hochi's house, supervising the, work, and I see Hochi. I'm like, hey, what's up? And my dad tells him, hey, he wants to go work at a factory. But I'm not, he's in school right now, but he wants to go see your factory. So he's like, yeah, of course, come here. Next day I go, and I came back home with a job. So that's it. It's
awesome.
Kind of crazy. Kind of crazy.
I didn't have the chance to meet Hochi, but we sat down with Jose Manuel at PCA, and that company and that family's got it. They've got that system figured out.
Yeah. I love Manuel, my boy. Great kid.
Yeah. So you worked
kind
in
of
the
the
factory.
elevator pitch.
What did you start doing there, or what did they have you doing?
A little bit of everything. It was crazy because at the time, Hochi had his nephew Vinny, and that was pretty much the only person besides Hochi in just overall management. And it's a big operation. I mean, if you go to Free Trade Zone Park, it's not just the factory. It was, just mind you, when I got there, it was 2012-ish, late 2012. That's right before they got the #2 cigar of the year with the aging room F55, the Churchill box press. Yep. And that was a year that the #1 was a Cuban. So essentially in the States, #1 cigar was
off limits.
It crazy. So that it essentially became #1. So I saw that transition from a factory that was, to not too long before I got there, just, manufacturing and contract manufacturing oriented. And as it had been in the last 20 years, I worked hand in hand with Thompson, with Famous, with JR, with all the catalogs and stuff like that. But it really transcended when Hochi bought into Aging Room and became a partner the year before they got that ranking. And then the factory kind of exploded in that sense, because it was really focusing on their premium manufacturing, the premium cigar ultra premium cigar manufacturer, let's call it that. Hochi's one of the largest independent tobacco growers in the Dominican Republic. So you can imagine the Free Trade Zone Park. I mean, there's 10 different factories in there. Henderson's factory that just burned a couple of weeks ago is in there. PDR is in there. There's a few other factories, Cuban stock. Point is, it's a fairly big operation, and I just started doing anything that I could get my hands on. I mean, it was like I was Vinny's assistant essentially, but the
assistant to the regional manager.
That is correct. Assistant to the regional manager. That's a great reference. Office is my favorite show. The job just grew, and it was crazy because there were a lot of things that needed to be done in the operation. So we we essentially revamped operations within the first year. Expanded, built 2 new aging rooms, enabled one of the warehouses down in the first part of the Free Trade Zone as a tobacco storage location, which would filled with just a ton of tobaccos. And we built a new warehouse right across the main warehouse. It was a lot of work, and then it became more commercial bits by bits. And then I started getting in touch with the catalog companies. I would handle the meetings with the brand development, and we would do like catalog products. And then we would work with other smaller clients, but more geared towards like the premium market, the ultra premium market. It was an awesome experience that gave me a taste of a little bit of everything, which was amazing.
So when did you shift to knowing you wanted to work in cigars to saying like, I want to start something of my own?
I've always wanted to do something on my own. I started a small company when I was in my teens, and it was an event company. And then in 2012, I do remember being in a small associate degree program in upstate New York. And I remember doing my final project on subscriptions. And I said, this like 10 years from now, everything is going to be a subscription.
Yep.
Is that prophecy really fulfilled? No, but close enough. I think there's like 90% of everything that you do is a subscription based, directly or indirectly. So yeah, I've always had that entrepreneurial drive in the sense of I grew up, watching my parents be their own bosses and building their own stuff together, which is crazy. I don't know how they do it, because I would kill my significant other if I would build something.
That's a special thing when that actually works.
Yeah, I tell my dad that's the thing I most I admire the most about you, which is funny. But yeah, I always knew I wanted to do something. It was just a matter of when. It was my mid-20s when I said screw this. I love what I've been doing. I'm thankful for the opportunity. Then after Hochi, I moved on to Pro Cigar for 2 years, which I had a really interesting role. It was amazing because it was super dynamic. I would work with the factories at the same time. I had to wear the suit and kind of use my legal degree and go to meetings with politics and trying to, we really streamlined the lawsuit against an appeal with different countries that were implementing standardized packaging in the WHO. It was crazy because it was super dynamic in that sense that it just included everything. But I just wanted to do my own thing, and it was time. I said, guys, thanks for the opportunity, but I'm going to go do this.
Go off on your own. So you went from Pro Cigar to starting your own. What did you have? Did the vision you had for what you wanted to do, is that what you ended up doing, or is where it's at now very different from what you had in mind? Because I was doing a podcast with someone yesterday, and we were having the conversation of, even with this magazine, like we have this vision in our head and this spark that starts, and we're like, here's what we want this thing to be. And then when it comes to actually doing it, not saying that you get derailed or your plans change, but you start understanding what is this actually going to take, and then the project develops and pivots, and over time you end up with hopefully something similar to what you had in mind in the beginning. But do you feel like what you've created is what your dream was from the beginning?
I think, quite frankly, if anybody will answer that question and say that yes, they kind of understood the process, what it was going to be, kind of envisioned everything and had the final outcome as they envisioned it, is because they've done it before. I think that's the only way you can actually, and effectively say that. If you haven't done it before, there's just so many turns. Things change. It's like when you grow your hair out, right? You've been growing your hair out for months, and then you see it's long, and you're like, when did it grow so long? Like you're accustomed to seeing it, and then you see a picture of you 3 months ago, you're like, that's not me. Because my hair was, I'm almost bald, and now I have a full set of hair. Because when you see things every day, you don't see the changes. You don't really notice the changes until everything is done, right? So I think that's kind of been, it's a weird analogy, but it's kind of how, we've started, and we are where I kind of envisioned we would be, but that's in the macro perspective. There's a lot of things that have changed. I came on board and met with my business partner, and I told him, this is what we need. This is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to get there. And we took a different direction, started. So that kind of changes any initial, projections and things that we were going to do. I mean, I thought I was going to be living the dream by the beach and just flying every 2 weeks like I was doing the first year, because, back home, beach is 30 minutes away from home. And I like surfing, and, I would go surf 5 a.m. and I would just work from, 8 a.m. till my body couldn't take it anymore. I would just pass out, go to sleep, and then do it all over again. But business required my physical presence 24/7. So I moved to Miami a couple of years ago, a year into the business. So a lot of things change, and you have to be able to adapt. And I think, if we're still here, I think there's a stat about how like 75 to 80% of the businesses are don't survive after the third year. So I think we're close. We have a couple of months.
I was going to say you're right about 3 years, right?
We are actually, we turned 3 in September. Okay. So we're a little bit past. We made it across the line. As long as we're good in the next 6 months, which I envision we will be. I think we're on the other side of the finish line. Although you're never really finished per se. It never ends.
So your model is, I'll let you explain that, the model of how the subscription works, because I think there's so many people doing a subscription model of everything, and then there's several in the cigar world, and they all sort of function differently, or have a different target demographic, or some are out there to figure out how do we get the best deals for customers. The last time we had talked, you talked about wanting to make sure you continue to respect the companies you work with. And that passion for the industry and respect for the brands is what motivates, how you operate your business, how you price it, all of that. So talk about kind of how this business operates and what sets you guys apart.
So I think that's a great question. And I think it's timely, because we've always said two things of, that represent or kind of set us apart. Or somebody asked me what's so special about My Cigar Pack? Say a couple words, and I'll always say the same thing: value and dynamism. By value, we mean, everybody has to win: the consumer, the brands, ourselves. There has to be education. There has to be a special process within the curation. There has to be, a straightforward process with working with brands that see the value in working with you. Not to be redundant, but again, it's around the value. If you're subscribing to a product, I need to be giving you a deal, even if it's indirect. If you're paying $35, $40 for the pack, you need to be getting more value out of it. There's different ways of receiving value. Of course, there's scarcity, there's price, there's a lot of factors, but there has to be a value. And I think we've always respected that in different fronts, with the brands, with the consumers, with the education, with our members, through everything throughout the process. And then that takes us to dynamism. I've always said we are the most dynamic, because we started having, in 2019, when we set up, there was one company, which is good friends of ours, had a quiz. And I said, okay, that's interesting, but I've been long enough in this industry, even though I'm super young. I've been doing this for pretty much most of my adult life, that I can tell you there is no way to subjectively go on a quiz and say, all right, this cigar is that for me tastes like vanilla is going to be appropriate for you.
Was this like a quiz to figure out what the flavor profile of the cigars you were going to receive would be, or what?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And then the curation was going to be developed in that process. So we said, all right, okay, I respect that. If they're converting people that way, that's awesome. But that's not the way it's going to work. Eventually people are going to realize that may be, tapping into a beginner consumer base that, may be a little bit bigger than I believe it is. And then we had, this other person that was focusing on like hyper limited, hard to find stuff. Right before we launched, we had guys over at Luxury that did the super high end curations. And then there's others, but those were a couple of the main ones that I saw and said, how do we do this? That we combine all these elements and just offer a curation based on trust and provide the value and dynamism. So we said, okay, let's set up 2 selections. Or actually, we started with 3 selections: the mild pack, the medium pack, and the full pack, which essentially dividing by strength.
It's peeking out over here.
There's
the mild pack.
There you go.
Or the
guys saw.
pack.
Yep. So when we started, we had the 3 options, and we thought we were offering a solution for every smoker out there, for beginners, for people that wanted to smoke milder stuff, for aficionados, or people wanted to smoke the powerful cigars that lock you on your ass. And we felt that was a good start enough, prior to the gaining data and insight before we saw how we were going to pivot and include more stuff. So we started growing, and we started receiving, quantifying data, quantifying feedback, understanding how our growth was going to lead us to become vertically integrated. I mean, at the end of the day, what do you want? You want to have every single option out there for a consumer to relate to or have a possibility to buy, right? So, I go back to the factory days where I was doing, I would get a call by, Laura from CI that would tell me, hey, we need this product, and I need you guys to do the branding. We've got this name registered. We got to do the branding. It's going to be a bundled cigar. So at first I understand you're missing out on an opportunity on, getting creme de la creme blends priced at, $5 or $6. But then I understood when the projects were being developed that there was a huge market for that. People who didn't really care about the marketing, about the branding, they would want to obviously see a logo of some kind and have a bundle, just, $5-6 cigars to mow your lawn or whatever. And then Factory Direct was born, and then, 3 months went by and we've got 100 people asking us, hey guys, we're beginners. 5 cigars is too much. Can you provide a 3 cigar option? Like, these cigars are going bad. And I'm like, hey, how are they going bad? Just get a humidor, keep them in the pouches. But then, I would see them breaking the pouches. I'm like, all right, let's set up a 3 cigar option. And things kept developing. And then we have mystery packs, and now we have elite. And as we were talking, our designer Daniel is finishing up the last touches on the new website, and then they're going to go to programming. And before the end of the month, we're going to have a new website. And I think this is when we finally fulfill the word dynamic. I want anybody from different parts of the world that hit the website, that they land on My Cigar Pack, to have an option. If you're not, if you don't find relatability, I think we're going to have to dig deeper, but it's going to be really tough. We're going to have the cheap cigars. We're going to have the high-end cigars. We're going to have the standard subscription. We're going to have options for milder smokers, for stronger smokers, the factory directs, the 3 cigars, the 10 cigars, the mystery packs, the elites, we're even going to have a new feature that I haven't seen it before anywhere else. We're going to have brand subscriptions. So if you're married to a particular brand, we're going to have subscriptions for just that brand. And then phase 2 of the new website is going to be implemented probably in January. And we're going to have a lot of, and if I can give you a hint, is like pairing elements that are not going to be necessarily within every subscription, but they can have their own specialized segment. So what we want is to truly be as dynamic as we possibly can. That's meaning if you landed on our website, we want to have something for you. We want your business, and we want to provide that value for you. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but we at least want to have it there for you.
That's awesome. I like that it's not, here's what we have and I hope you like it. It's, that's every business, but like you said, the dynamism, that's important, because it's showing that you're not only confident about your product, but you're trying to figure out how do we get customers engaged at the level that they want to engage at. What would you say about the subscription model? Because this has come up so many times over the years, and I think every conversation I've heard about subscriptions like this, people will say it's taking business away from brick and mortar, which it's like, I don't think the volume lines up to it actually taking business away from brick and mortar, because I've seen people get into cigars that they don't live near a shop or they don't have access, or there's cigars that their shop doesn't carry, and they find it through subscriptions like yours, especially if they're like, I want this rare stuff, or I want the newest stuff from Foundation and I can't find it anywhere. It's like, there's so many ways to support a brand, but how do you do that and support brick and mortar? Because I think that's a cornerstone of the industry.
So, I would argue empirically against it, factually against it. There's no grounds on that. That's just very perception based, and I can tell you why. There's many reasons. I mean, if you want to take the online macro perspective approach, I do see you do have a point. Why? Because there's essentially, for the last 20 years, there's been a race to the bottom in terms of pricing and having kind of very strict price protection structures within most brands, but then so hard to control, especially when you have monsters buying multi-million dollar, amounts of product out of your brand each year and just setting you up for life. But subscriptions, specialized subscriptions, and just subscriptions in general, have such a low volume altogether. I mean, people would be surprised if they knew how little of, how small of the pie we actually have altogether. Really, it's honestly, it doesn't.
The pie of cigar sales.
Yes,
in general,
the cigar market in general. It's crazy how beneficial we've become to shop. And I'll just stand by this. There's no way that brands would support us if we weren't beneficial to their structure.
Right.
And the amount of business that we drive to the retail structure, you're never going to replace that. Never, ever, ever, ever replace that. There's no, especially in a product that is a social lubricant, that's a social enhancer. I mean, there's very few people that smoke by themselves, and I'm talking strictly by themselves. I'm not talking, online and Hearst, because that's a social interaction. That's the technology enabling us to, get on a conversation. You being in Wisconsin, me being in Miami, or you being in Canada. I actually have a Herf later, which is I'm super excited about with the guys in International Cigar Society. I love Canadian people, and this enables it. But the retail front has gained a lot from and brick and mortar structure has gained a lot from what the specialized subscriptions have done. We constantly drive people that have never tried cigars, that try it through us, and we drive them consumers saying, hey, I got the cigar out of XYZ, I got it from My Cigar Pack, do you carry it? You'd be surprised the amount of times that we've had retailers reach out to us for us to connect them with certain brands. And that's crazy because we typically don't work with super small brands.
You guys, your list of brands you work with is impressive.
The thing is, I've always emphasized on like anybody can go and buy 5,000 cigars and slap a band, and it really takes a lot of work and validation and go into the shops and making sure you're like, I won't place a brand in My Cigar Pack in any of the packs if you're not in the retail structure. That's how friendly we are. Like, we've been able to grow our in-house platform, our in-house brands enough that brands reach out to us. And I say this humbly, not there's no arrogance in this. Brands reach out to us for us to develop things together, release them as an exclusive, or release it through our platform without necessarily being exclusive, and then potentially seeing how that behaves so that they can enter it in the retail structure with all shops. And then we're launching a retailer program as well.
That's something I've seen so many people who get into cigars just a little bit. They're dabbling around with buying them online, then they find something they love, and then they get into like if anything, I've seen the retail or the online structure be an advertisement for retail.
Exactly.
And it drives people into shops, and they know what they want to find. And that's always exciting to watch.
And it's interconnectivity, education. There's so many fronts in the online, funnel, let's call it that are just trickling down to the retail front. I mean, one of the things we're going to do, and it's sometimes, it's not enough for me to tell you, go on our videos on YouTube or whatever and check out the way we pitch our products. I say, if you like the cigar and you go to only buy it from Cigar Yard if you order online. And if you go to Cigar Yard, the discounts, the price benefits that you receive are affecting our margins, not the products. So you won't see a discount if you go to Cigar Yard, and that's why brands want to work with us. And it's going to take time. I said from the get-go, we're not going to grow in the same speed as other people that discount product just because we're going to sell less. But at the end of the day, if a consumer realizes that they're buying a brand discounted off a catalog website at $7 and the brand's MSRP is at $10, and we're selling it at $9.50, but we're also giving you free shipping points, and then we have like member discounts. Yep. If you're a My Cigar Pack member, you get discounts, stuff like that. At the end of the day, you're going to pay $8. A dollar difference is not enough It's not worth it enough for you to. It may be for you, but it's not going to be enough for brands to continue a long-term support when there's other players that are doing this. And right. I can name a few people that are inspiring. I mean, Small Batch, probably my biggest competitor in the Cigar Yard front. I have so much love and so respect for them, the way that they do it. They're a big online retailer, and you will not find a discount on their website. So when you find hubs like that, and this is not for everybody. Obviously, there's brands that believe in the discounting platform. I mean, heck, I can name you one, Oliva, which is one of the best brands out there. They firmly believe in making sure that every single smoker in America has an Oliva cigar in their humidor, and it is tough to achieve that feat without a heavily permitting discount structure, because they don't really discount it. They permit it,
Oliva Rick's a good salesman.
There you go. So it's interesting, and there's ways that we're going to continue, backing our words and with actions. And one of the things is we're almost finally ready to launch a retailer program, and through which we will sell all the brands that we developed together. I mean, we were launching one brand every 2 months, and now we've grown to release a brand every month. We just released Matilde with Ella with Matilde, an exclusive for My Cigar Pack that Enrique actually reached out to us when we were together blending one of the projects last year at Ostos. And then next month we're doing Quantum with Blackbird. January we're doing El Principio with La Isla. February we're doing stuff with Phil Zangi from De Los Reyes. March we're doing stuff with La Aurora. April we're finally doing something again with Hochi. We're doing a small. So what I want to do, I want to be able to not just say, okay, I'm placing it for the shops. I'm going to do it in a Keystone Plus structure. And I don't think anybody's done that before. And I say that proudly.
When you say placing it in the shops, what does that mean?
I'm selling wholesale to the shops.
Okay. Because
we've already created a product that you can't find anywhere else. And the consumer has demonstrated that they want new things every day. Yep. And that's why brands are actually willing to do small runs of 5,000 and 10,000 cigars, which are actually small runs if you relate it to core lines, or limited editions of nowadays are 30,000 cigars, which is crazy.
Right.
So brands are willing to do this because they know that that's going to draw them or keep either through relevancy, and that's going to draw attention. If you're not moving your core lines that have the same bands for the last 4 years, and you do something spicy, completely different out of your brand, that attracts consumers. And that's something that we've kind of figured out, and the brands are figuring out by themselves. So the retailers can actually see that, we're using our platform to introduce them and have them have the bulk of the margins, then maybe they'll start to see a little bit that we actually mean that we believe that we're beneficial to the retail structure.
That's awesome. I like that it doesn't stop at your online store, but it's how do we push past that? Is there anybody else that's done a wholesale model like that?
Yeah. Pravada's done the LCA, Luxury's done the retailer program. They have, there are different people that have done it before. I just think everybody can do it their own way.
Right.
Pravada's done it with the LCA, in a unique way. They do a lot of runs. They do a quote unquote, stuff that's limited or created, which I'm not seeing it in a sarcastic way. Luxury have their specialized program with their, I think it's like certified or golden retail or something like that. Just pretty cool as well. I think the way that we're going to do it is a little bit different. I'm excited for that, man.
Very cool. I'm excited to see that. What's next for you? You talked about a lot of it. You talked about the website and the retail. I think, correct me if I got this wrong, you said you're creating some cigars or you're blending?
Yeah, man. It'd be crazy not to do it, having the opportunity that I had the last 10 years.
Right.
If I blended something, was because I was involved in the blending process, one way or the other. If I only participated in tweaking and giving my opinion and going back to the drawing board, I would never say I participated in the blend.
Right.
I'm not a blender. I know how to do it. I've learned the basics. You would figure working in a factory for 4+ years and then essentially living on and off inside a factory for the last 6 after that. You figured a little bit. You figured how to start if you want an earthy or sweet or acidic. What do you look for? How do you blend certain Dominican tobaccos versus, how much olor or how much Pennsylvania do you use? There's a lot of factors, but yeah, there's always going to be blending. The more time that passes by, probably the more time I will have to blend more stuff. I have blended a few of the things that we've released. A lot of it I haven't. I've just participated. But what's next for us is just new revamps. Launching My Cigar Pack new website by the end of the month. Cigar Yard new website will follow in December, alongside another platform called Cigar Detective. That's going to be another sub brand. You'll figure out soon enough what that is, but that is probably one of my favorite projects as of right now. And then we have 3 other projects that I want to have at least one of them running by January. So it's
How big is
very
your team?
ambitious timeline. I wear a lot of hats, man. We're sub 10 people, man. We're actually
That's
a pretty
awesome.
small team. Yeah, we're a very small team, but as you can see, there's a little bit of an eye bag right here. That means I lack sleeping hours. At least I'm happy.
Right. Very cool. How can people find you?
Simple, man. My Cigar Pack. If you type My Cigar Pack, you'll get a website on any search engine, website, Instagram, YouTube. I will say it's crazy that, Instagram's playing with the algorithm, and it has been for a little bit now. And I'm not a big social media guy. I haven't been since I deleted my social media platforms 6 years ago.
Good
Not
for
a
you.
big believer in a personal use. So I've kind of essentially had to learn from scratch when I launched and it's a ongoing thing. Like, I don't care about the likes and the engagement and all that, but it is a business tool. So I have it for
I think
fun.
it creates. We were having that conversation this morning. It's tough because, like you said, Instagram and these platforms have turned off the algorithms specifically in this industry. But even past that, like I'm a photographer outside of this, and they just. It's like, well, it sucks if you focus on still photos, you get to making videos, or else your account's just going to freeze.
Yeah.
And so it's like, is social media a tool to create more business or to validate? And I think it's
in the cigar industry, it's validate. Yep.
No,
for sure, to validate.
Just another place where someone can go and be like, okay, this is legitimate. There's activity here. There's something happening. But no, you guys are doing great. I love watching how this has grown and changed over the years.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate that. I mean, if you would have to boldly say something somewhat accurate and kind of stand by it, I would say that Instagram is by far the tool that yields the less ROI in relation to, and by I mean time, energy, and just overall creative effort.
Yeah.
That's the least yielding in terms of ROI. So by the amount of time that you spend on Instagram, it's the returns are insanely low. It is a great validation tool, and I think we couldn't actually be here the way that we are without it, but it's changed so much. Mm-hmm. And they control everything, just like the whole YouTube thing that went on a couple months, that all cigar accounts were like, oh, we're leaving. And I'm like, okay, more for me, more videos now.
Stick it out.
It's a private company. I mean, you play the rules. You play by the rules. You just gotta be smart about it.
Right. Awesome. Well, this has been great. We'll stay on the line for a second, but I will do what I can to spread the word about My Cigar Pack and send people your way and get people smoking good cigars. So,
dude, likewise, man. We got to keep talking some ideas that I have for potentially doing the same for ATF, man.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay.